Another week, boys, and another TWAB. This week at Bungie, we are heading to the lab. These experimental weekends will allow us to test our targeted changes to the game mode and collect data and feedback on what works and what should remain an abomination of science. In keeping with our trials revamp this season, we are sticking to our test and learn mindset, not only with labs, but also with matchmaking, rewards, and other quality of life improvements. Now this week, the normal Trials of Osiris playlist is replaced with Trials Labs Capture Zone. This new mode is still elimination with the following changes. 30 seconds after a round starts, a capture zone is enabled. Players can capture the zone to win the round or just eliminate the other team like normal. The capture zone has a waypoint from round start, including a countdown timer, so everyone will know exactly when and where it will be. The capture zone starts in the middle of the map in the first round and changes location each round. The team who just lost gets the advantage spawn location. Also for this week, double trial rank points for every match. If you're feeling the blues of Fable to Mythic, this is a great week to reset. Now listen, Bungie's gone through a couple game modes in the past with Trials of Osiris, one being survival, the other being countdown. I always felt like we were going to get an objective game mode though, added back into Trials, because Bungie really did like countdown, and survival has some similarities between it and elimination. I do have high hopes for this game mode though, considering it's dynamic, it changes round to round, and it changes depending on which team won. And if it actually is received well, yes, it can become a permanent mode inside of Trials. Now moving on, are you flawless? We tried something new for Trials this past weekend, something that has been requested in the feedback since Trials launched back in Destiny 1. We tested out separating off flawless players and their fire teams from players who hadn't gone flawless yet this week. Before we discuss what to expect this week and in the future, we'd like to talk about the goals we have for matchmaking in Trials of Osiris and look at some key data points for the first 2 weeks. One of the main changes we made with Trials this season was to allow solo and duo players to queue up. This had two benefits. It allowed players a low barrier of entry and expectation to try the mode out. And more importantly, it increased the population enough that fire teams of mid-skill players landed more wins than if they only match against other mid-skill or high-skill teams. Solo players are a key to the entire system working. For example, in our first week, a whopping 54% were full fire teams versus solos and duos. Cut to this week, where only 45% were fire teams versus solos and duos. A pretty sharp drop. To get enough solo players in, we need to offer rewards that are good enough and matchmaking that feels reasonable regardless of skill level. Right now, we have Ingrams that you can grind for, as well as attractive 7-win rewards, but only if you win. Keep solo players playing. We learned a lot from the first 2 weeks of solo matchmaking. Week 1, solo wins, 23% of games. Blowout, 5-0 losses, 38% of games. Good lord, that's more than 1 in 3. I'm telling you guys, if you get flawless as a solo player, you putting in work. Most warningly, the blowout rate for solo players went steadily up over the weekend. But then in the second weekend, the matchmaking changes pushed that rate back down. Week 2, solo win rate, 36% of games. Blowout losses, 29% of games. This feels a lot better for solo players, but obviously it had some side effects for fire teams of mid to high skill. Long term, we are looking to keep the solo win rate above 30% and solo fire team blowouts under 33%. Now keep gaming quality high, make sure more matches feel competitive, especially at 7 wins. We talked about blowouts as one of the ways of looking for competitive matches. We also consider 5-1 matches as non-competitive. The sweet spot is really between 5-2 and 5-4. Those matches tend to feel good while playing, even if you end up losing. In week 1, we saw 60% of the matches in at either 5-0 or 5-1. In week 2, the number of non-competitive matches dropped to 52%. A nice improvement, but we would like to see this number drop to 30 and 40% over the long term. Oh boy, I'm hearing skill-based matchmaking at all times in your card being talked about right here, guys. I know they're not saying it, but that's what that's telling me. Now keep matchmaking times low. One of our biggest goals is to keep matchmaking times low while still getting matches with a good connection and a competitive outcome. We always keep an eye on matchmaking times whenever we make serious changes to the matchmaking landscape. In both weeks, average matchmaking times were pretty steady at just under 50 seconds per match. The only reason it was even that high was because players who started off on a terrible streak would end up in a matchmaking pool below the base pool that only looked for other players who had started off losing 10 rounds in a row. It's a very small pool with matchmaking times that lasts over 4 minutes before the system gives up and expands back to the base pool. Interesting. Okay, we're going to be adjusting how the matchmaking help applies so no one gets stuck stuck in the smaller matchmaking pool going forward. Other things that worked. We had just over 700,000 players this weekend, only 50,000 fewer players than week 1. This is higher than expected, given a normal drop-off after launch combined with Distant Shore being a less popular map. Plus, we had 253,000 players go flawless. Games were 10% longer, mostly due to more competitive games. Things that didn't work. We saw 34% less matches played overall, and the number of matches post-flawless dropped by 45%. We had reports of significant numbers of players resetting 5-0 or 6-0 cards, but we saw around 16,000 total cards that were reset while flawless, but under 7 wins. Given the vast number of games and cards played, 2.7 million cards started this week. This isn't a lot, but it is something we are watching, as it is unhealthy for the mode if it becomes more common. Normally, we see nearly 50% of the players who go flawless doing so with someone else who is already flawless. Last week, it was 56%. This can either be a traditional carry or just playing with friends. That number dropped to 16% this week, which is unacceptably low for friend game content. Okay, so week 1 was 56%, and then week 2, 16%? Am I saying that right? Oh, that is quite a drop. To address this, we are making 2 changes in week 3. We are waiting until Sunday morning at reset to enable the flawless pool. This serves as a middle ground between week 1 and week 2 as the semi-permanent placement for enabling the flawless pool. As always, we'll be looking at both analytics and feedback, so keep telling us what is working and what isn't. We're working on some deeper matchmaking solutions, which we hope lets us remove the flawless pool. Look out for more info in mid to late October. I guarantee it, guys. It's going to be some level of skill-based matchmaking, but like deeper and throughout the entire card. Watch what I say. We are turning off matchmaking help until you have played at least 2 matches during the weekend. And that was the matchmaking help they talked about above, meaning you can't just go in there and intentionally bottom out your skill level by just jumping off the map and losing rounds. Interesting to know that they're actually going to be activating this on Sunday. We talked about this earlier, and I felt like a middle ground had to be met here. My solution was to still have the flawless pool, but instead of it being account-wide, it was character-based. This is interesting as well though. Sunday morning at reset will be when the flawless pool goes active, meaning if you've been flawless, at reset you will be playing only flawless players starting on Sunday. Simultaneously though, if you have not gone flawless, trials should be significantly easier at reset on Sunday. I guess the question is how many people are actually playing trials on Sunday? Now, in addition to the previously announced changes, players will no longer get special ammo replenished when being revived, adding hold functionality to purchase gear from Saint 14 to prevent accidental purchases. Weapons received from reputation rank rewards on Saint 14 will now have their masterwork slots active. Previous weapons obtained won't receive a masterwork slot. Wow. Okay. Unfortunately, while we previously announced that we would be removing the matchmaking counter for this week, this change wasn't quite able to make it into the 3.3.0.3 patch. Now, looking further forward, we expect to take another swing at matchmaking to keep some of the solo and lower skill protections from week 2 without strongly and negatively affecting flawless players. We are also looking at adjustments to rewards for round and match wins on 7-win cards. Other than that, updates and trial TWAB reports will be less common as we get trials into a more stable state. Iron Banner is also back next week, so after Trial Labs, Capture Zone, trials will take a week off and will return on October the 8th. So yeah, guys, we actually made a video earlier today going over the trial report and pretty much discussing all the statistics from last weekend. The numbers really showed there was more people that went flawless, but the amount of drop-off that you saw in players getting out of Trials of Osiris was actually the most alarming statistic. Again, the idea of trials is to be a fun game mode for everyone and for people to want to keep going back into the playlist. And there's incentives for that, right? Loot, the various game modes. If you just love Destiny 2 PvP, which some people do. I mean, me personally, I've been loving trials. At the same time, you have to be worried a little bit when you start to see audience and player retention really dropping off. Now, on the cover. Earlier today, we announced our first digital fashion magazine dedicated to showcasing the fragile style of Guardians. This is your time to shine. In the first edition of Threads of Light. No, they did not. Oh, look at that. What is that, Midnight Smith? That Titan's looking mighty fine. Plus the name, man. Threads of Light. That's clever. We partnered with 3 Guardians who have previously created their own fashion looks to highlight on our first cover. They posed for our cameras and outlined their looks for you to recreate. The next time you're on the red carpet, be ready to answer the question, who are you wearing? With either Numbly, Muffin Bandit, or Vanguard Vogue. What a name. Vanguard Vogue? Of course it's a warlock, right? Look at that. I should have known. Your inner vanity may be whispering, hey, I want to be on that cover. If you fancy your guardian posing for the next edition of Threads of Light, we have good news for you. It's time for another fashion show. Similar to the previous shows of fashion, we'll be hunting for looks that catch your eye and sharing them on our suite of social channels across the globe. All you have to do to enter is to share a shot of your guardian's appearance page and use hashtag Threads of Light on Instagram or Twitter. You can also tag Destiny in the game or our account for your region. We'll be picking winners until September the 30th. Then we'll pick one of each class to be on the next cover of Threads of Light, sometimes in the next few months. Everyone we feature will still get the fashion show emblem, but only one hunter, one titan, and one warlock will make it onto the next cover. Start digging through your wardrobes and creating your look. Good luck on the runway. No lie, guys, I think we're gonna do it, okay? Look, I'm not saying I have the sexiest warlock or the sexiest hunter. I think they look quite awful. But our titan, oh, he's sexy. So I think we just might enter. Now, primed and ready? That's right, guys. Prime rewards are back again. We've got a sparrow, a ship, a ghost, and an emote. Amazing. Now, a hotfix that went out today. Some of these were already covered in the TWAB, but gameplay and investment, adept weapon mods for impact, charge time, blast radius, and projectile speed can now be acquired from Grandmaster Nightfall's raids, in addition to Trials of Osiris. Also fixed another bug with Telesto. Telesto was spawning Orders of Power when hit with the proximity explosive knife. Now, someone's gonna ask, what about the note today that was mentioned about Horus Lease? Stated from Cosmo earlier on Twitter, I just caught an error in these notes. The fix for Horus Lease dropping at the wrong power level didn't make this release and is scheduled for an upcoming one. Removing that note now. Yeah, they actually mentioned Horus Lease, which is dropping at 0 power from the Corrupted Strike. It's bugged. It should be dropping at the Strike's power level. This does not mean it's on sunset. Horus Lease will still be dropping at 1100 light. And a lot of people get excited. They're like, yo, Horus Lease is getting on sunset. I wish, man. I wish. Now, as a final note here from Cosmo, we're excited to see what new fashion trends you start during the fashion show. It's not just about the emblem and bragging rights. Now you can land yourself on the cover of Threads of Light magazine. That's all for this week. I'm looking forward to trying out the Trials Labs changes tomorrow. I'm going to build a fire team. So if you want to play, keep an eye on our LFG site at bungie.net. For everyone who will be playing this week, remember, control the zone. Love, Cosmo. All right, guys, that is your TWAB. We will be playing live tomorrow on Twitch. Feel free to come by. I actually won't have a fire team, so I've got to look for some people. But I'm excited, man. It's been a long time since we had any other game mode inside of Trials. I've had people say for the longest time that they would love Trials if it was anything but elimination. So hopefully, we'll all be enjoying this new game mode. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.